Is work not working out for you? Hey guys, Greg Johnston, occupational therapist and CEO of Southeastern Support Care Services. Today, I'm bringing you a video that will highlight a document that I created on how to approach work for it to be meaningful, for you to be satisfied with it and not frustrated. But let me tell you a little bit of my story, my background, and sort of how I got to the point of creating the document I'm going to share with you. One of my jobs years ago was I was a missionary in Bulgaria working with disabled people of all ages. And while I was there, one of the requirements for my work was that I learn the Bulgarian language. Well, I was not very good at it, and it created many times where I became frustrated and agitated because I could not express myself clearly in a situation. Well, having that experience made me better at serving the people that I was working with, because I came to internally recognize and understand in a very deep way the challenges of people who have communication disorders or various issues with being able to express themselves. And so it allowed me to be more compassionate and to see things from their vantage point. Now, let's get back to this document that I created. The same thing really happened with this. When I returned from Bulgaria, I worked in a few different environments where I had this belief that if, and really this has sort of carried me through most of my life, I had this belief that if I develop a high level of expertise, if I develop my skill set, I won't ever have to worry about work. I'll always have opportunities. People will always seek me out for opportunities. Well, that idea and that way of thinking was on a collision course with the reality I faced, and that reality was that the people who were above me didn't always see the value in what I was bringing in the same way that I did. They didn't put some of those things at a high level of importance like I did. Things that I felt were essential to doing the job well were not necessarily seen that way by my employers, and no amount of persuasion really seemed to change opinions on those things. And so that created some frustration for me, and it really led me on the path that I'm on now, which was to begin figuring out a way to work for myself. And that's what Southeastern Support Care Services is all about. I'm the CEO. I'm in charge of the day-to-day operations, and it's my vision that carries this organization. But let's talk about this document that I created, Work Code Resolutions. So one day, as I was preparing and getting ready for work, I just felt this compulsion to write down some thoughts, and I didn't really know where it was going, but I decided to start just putting my thoughts down, and at the end, I came away with, without very much editing, I came away with 20 work code resolutions. That's what I'm calling it. And I'm going to share those with you and talk you through them a little bit. Like I said, I believe that you will find that that if you're able to take these ideas, particularly if you're in a situation like I was in, where you believe that your skills are what mattered and someone will sort of take care of you, they'll give you opportunities, and you find yourself, even though that does happen a lot, you find yourself sometimes in a situation where the people who are signing your check don't see things the same way you do, and it can create a lot of frustration for you. So what I did was I created a list of resolutions, things that I will do and things that I will not do. And actually, I divided them for you into a I will and I will not categories, but it was really more like 3 or 4 I wills and then one I will not. So this actually comes from this. This is the first printout of my document. So so yeah, there's my 20 work code resolutions. So let's talk about this a little bit. So as you see at the top, resolved, I will. Now, what I'm saying when I'm saying resolved, it means I've decided that this is very important to me and I'm going to commit to this. This is the way I'm going to live now. And so let's go through that list a little bit and I'll stop and talk at various points. Resolved, I will be a positive influence on culture. Now, the reason that is number 1 on my list is because I get great satisfaction, and I think we're all made this way, that if you're going to work, it really helps for your work to be, for you to feel like it's productive, to feel like it's sort of moving the ball forward. It's very frustrating to do work that that you see no value in, that you're just kind of going through the steps because someone told you to do it, and you have no intrinsic motivation to do it other than, I mean, well, it's not intrinsic, it's just that you're doing it just to get a paycheck. So I did not want to be that guy. I want my work to matter. I want it to have a positive impact on culture. Creating a brand, that's the same kind of idea. I want to, when people think about the work I do and what I produce, I want people to think about value. I want people to think that I care about them, that I'm committed to helping people make improvements and to have satisfying lives. And that's part of creating a brand. That's what I want to do. I don't want to just wake up one morning, do a job, go to bed, and then sort of start the whole thing over the next day. I want to be on a mission, and that's what brand creation is all about. I think it's important that when we are working and that we have a mission for our work, that we commit to really getting after it. And so that's the next thing, is I want to work hard, but I don't want to just be spinning my wheels. I want to be smart about how I work, and also want to be humble in working. So working hard, smart, and humbly. The next one, and there are a series of these that I was a little bit hesitant about including in my list, but ultimately I was convinced that I want to do good work, and I'm not going to be ashamed about if you come to me for help, knowing that what I provide to you is valuable. And so that's what this next one and a few other ones on the list are about. It's not about greed. It's expect to be I'm resolved that I will expect to be well compensated. So I expect to be well compensated because I expect of myself that I'm going to do the best job I can do for you. The next one, this one involves something that has been a frustration for me. It says that I will speak out against shady practices, and at least I will not comply. So in my work, without going into any details about this, I have from time to time been put in situations where there was pressure to do things that I thought, I don't like this. I think this is not in the best interest of my client. There's another motive for this. And sometimes you are in a situation where there is a lot of pressure to comply with these things. And so when I see these things, I'm committed. In fact, my professional ethics require this of me. I'm committed to speak out against those practices. But you see in the parentheses, recognizing that sometimes there's such a power dynamic that speaking out will cost you greatly. And so the in parentheses is for that. And at least I will not comply. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to speak out against shady practices, but at least I'm not going to comply with them. You're not going to get my help doing those things. And the next one goes along with that: gain enough power to resist unethical leadership. This is one of these realities in life that was hard for me to accept. That ethics and power really have a relationship, and that people who don't have enough personal power will get run over by others. If you were not in a favorable position, if you were not important to your organization, or at least as important to your organization as the person that you have some sort of a conflict with, where it's an ethical issue, you're going to get smoked. And so I think it's important that we think about those things. And so that's why I have gain enough power to resist unethical leadership. The next one is very personal one, but I think it's something that I've neglected from time to time over the years. I certainly have highs and lows with it. It's take care of myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I think one of the best examples of why that's important is when you're on an airplane, they talk about if the masks drop, put it on yourself before you put it on someone else, because if you pass out, then you're not going to be any good to anyone else. So it's the same idea that if I don't take care of myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically, I'm not going to be any good to the people that I want to serve, to my family, to my clients. So that's got to be a high priority. Creating opportunities for my family. I don't think I really have to elaborate on that a whole lot, except that I have admired and frankly probably been jealous a little bit of people who have applied this to their lives, and I've seen where their children have benefited from their awareness that part of their responsibility is to set their children up for success and for opportunities. And so I want my work to go in that direction. I want the value that I bring to other people to result in a positive effect on my family, whether it's opportunities or just an example. The next one: plan ahead so that I'm able to quickly leave bad situations. And then the little caveat on that is, but I will not leave before I'm ready. So I think I first got this idea from Jordan Peterson, where he talks about always having other opportunities. Because when you find yourself in a situation that you cannot live with, it's a very irresponsible thing, especially if you have a family to care for. It's a very irresponsible thing to just walk away from all of your responsibilities. So you may not be able to pay the bills, feed your family, things like that. If you have not planned ahead, you're going to either have to stay in that situation, or you're going to put your family in a really bad situation once you bail out on that. Obviously, there are work situations where you get released, and that's nothing that you can do about it. But if you are planning ahead, when those things happen, you have more of an opportunity to bounce back more quickly. Work to move away from trading time for money. I'm going to shout out to a physical therapist named Greg Todd. I learned this from him. It's not something that I haven't heard before, but he really emphasizes it in his training and coaching programs. I have spent most of my life trading my time for money. And the problem with that is it's hard to build something from that, because you never get very far ahead. And then if you have setbacks, where there are company layoffs and things like that, all of a sudden you've got real issues there. I will work for myself, as I've already explained multiple times in this video. For you to get where you need to go, unless your leader is in sync with you and your vision, you're going to face some frustrations with that. And if you can't handle those frustrations, if they're too much, you're going to have to do something different. You have to work for yourself. I also want to take this opportunity to talk about people with disabilities who have some challenging behaviors or have some other difficulty with being able to do a job. We find ourselves as those who support them in trying to help them find work opportunities. It can be very frustrating, because the people that we're going to, they've got a bottom line, and they have certain things that need to be done. They need to be responsible with their finances, and it's oftentimes very hard for them to take on the responsibility of hiring someone who may not be very productive, or even if the person can be or is very productive, you also have fears that you have to sometimes overcome with potential employers who are not sure that they can give an opportunity within their tight budget to someone who has a disability, who may have challenges in being able to do some of the important parts of the job. So I began thinking about this as I was watching and kind of supporting some people. Would really be great is if they were able to do work for themselves. And I think there's some ways to do that. I'm going to be involved in some of these things and creating programs. I'm absolutely convinced that entrepreneurship is a great path for people with disabilities, because hoping someone will give you an opportunity it feels desperate, and it is desperate, and you really don't want to be there if you don't have to be. The next one, I will make myself a desirable option, but I will not grovel for work. Okay, this is an issue of self-respect. I want to be skilled at what I do, and I want to convince someone who might give me a chance that I am well worth it, that I can get it done. But if it's a situation where I'm not being respected, it goes back to that issue of taking care of myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically. If I'm in a situation where emotionally it's detrimental to me, I need to not get myself in that situation. And that's really what I'm talking about, is with the not groveling for work. I think it's important to show people that you are worth it and that you're going to put in the effort and those kinds of things. But if you don't have respect for yourself, they're not going to respect you either. All right, let's move on to the I will nots. Okay, so part of my work code resolutions, what I'm trying to emphasize is that there is a positive way to view how I go about being a worker, and there are also some things that I just have to say no to. I have to just accept about myself, and I have to determine within myself that I'm going to be this kind of person. So in work code resolutions, I'm resolved. I will not apologize for my pay rate. It goes back to One of the earlier ones, expect to be well compensated. Look, if I'm the best person you can find to help you do what you need done, you ought to be glad to provide the pay for the services that I'm providing. I'm not going to be greedy and ask for something that I didn't earn. But if I'm very good at what I do, I'm just not going to apologize for getting paid as someone who does good work. But it's also important that very next thing. See, it's not all about the money. I will not yield to pressure to put profit above quality. And I've been in too many situations where that has been a huge factor, and it really is demoralizing because I know I have something to bring to a client, but I'm not allowed to do that in the environment that I'm in. And it's not any one person who necessarily is creating that. It's sort of the environment that we find ourselves in a lot of times in healthcare industry, that you're constantly trying to crank out units of service provision so that you can justify your salary, so that your employer can pay the bills and things like that. But for you one-on-one with your client, it really is disheartening to know that sometimes there's pressure for you to get out of there when staying in would be the best thing for the client. Next one, you see the in parentheses there. So this is on the I will not list, but I'm really trying to emphasize that it's not just that I will not, it's I will never. Okay, this is the only one on the list that's like that. I will never. And that is, I will never engage in practices that violate my conscience, even if technically legal. Okay, so if deep down I understand that something is wrong, it doesn't matter to me if someone can come along and justify it. I am not going to go along with it. I cannot violate my conscience. I'm never going to do that. And I advise you not to do that either. Participate in work activities that harm my family. I'm never going to do that. If I have an opportunity, but it does harm to my family, I'm not going to do it. Now, obviously, there's some. When you think about this, sometimes there are trade-offs, like putting more time into work creates opportunities for your family financially. Certainly, like police officers or military, you put your life on the line. If you're killed in action, that is detrimental to your family. So there are things you have to balance with that, but those are honorable things. What I'm really emphasizing here is doing something dishonorable, something that will hurt my family in that way. I will not stay in dead-end situations long, and I will try to avoid them altogether. So you think about, if you find yourself in a situation that when you start working, it is not satisfactory, and you think, well, how long am I going to have to be in this unsatisfying situation? I'll use one of my very first jobs as an example. So if you go to work at a grocery store, and one of your first jobs is bagging groceries and sweeping and mopping the floors, cleaning bathrooms, the basic bag boy stuff. You can decide, this is okay for me for now. I'm okay with this. Or, I love doing this. I can see myself doing this forever. If that's you, great. But if you think, I'm not satisfied with that, then what you need to know about that company is, can I advance with them? If I work this job for a year, am I going to get a promotion to the deli or to the produce department or something else? How long will it take for me to become a store manager? Those are things to think about. If you look at the job and you think, They are never going to let me do anything other than bag groceries, and I hate bagging groceries. Well, you gotta you gotta move out of that situation, because that's a definition of a dead end job. I would not be content with that, and I think most people would not be. Uh, so you want to look at your situation, you want to examine it, and if you see there's no potential to advance, but you feel like advancing is what you need to do, then you gotta pull the plug and do something else. Um, I will say this, as far as being able to do a job that that is menial, that is hard, that doesn't bring you any personal satisfaction, there is nothing wrong with doing hard work. There's nothing wrong with doing the necessary stuff. Um, I think Mike Rowe is a great example of someone who would say, you got to learn to work. You got to do the stuff that needs to be done. And I'm not at all calling those kinds of situations dead end situations. What I'm saying about this is that um, you can work in those situations, but if they don't generate some opportunity for you, and you feel like that's really what you want to be satisfied, you need that to have opportunities to move, to advance, then that's dead end, and you gotta move on. See, where am I on my list? Okay. This is really the last thing. If I'm treated like a beggar, I'm not going to seek work from such people again, because I am a beggar at God's feet, but not at man's. Okay, so this again goes back to that issue of respect. I need to respect myself enough um, that that I can walk away from a situation where people are treating me in a demeaning fashion. Um, I will do manual labor, and I've done manual labor, and it's honorable. Um, but if the person I'm working for um, treats me as if I'm not worthy of doing something else, um, then I'm just not going to. I may do that for a while when I have to, but I'm going to move on from that. Um, and so that's my list. I know this video is actually long and is much longer than I planned for it to be, but the reason I created this is because I think that it can be of great value for you if you think about how you want to approach your work. I think for people who have disabilities or who have various challenges with being able to work, this is a good starting place to start thinking differently about who you are, what you want out of life, and what you are willing to do and accept as a worker. Um, if you can't agree to these things, or you can't come up with your own list of work code resolutions, and they don't have to be as detailed as mine is. Maybe yours would be even more detailed. But if you if you don't do something like this or work through a process like this, you may find yourself drifting along year after year, and then somewhere down the road going, I was dependent too much on other people to give me opportunities, and I got to reassess my situation. Honestly, that's where I was, and as I'm sharing this with you, I'm still learning it. I do not have this mastered. And so if you want to walk alongside me with this, great. If you have comments about what I've shared, I would love to hear from you. And I would just ask you, it helps me with my channel, if you would subscribe, if you'd hit the like button, and make comments. That is always encouraging for me to see. All right, you guys take care.